Hello there, and welcome to another edition of the Husker Online Show. Sean Callahan, Steve Sitter, Robin Washett, as we are just less than 24 hours away from getting on a plane and heading out to Indianapolis for the three-day spectacular Big Ten Media Days. Also, Stephen M. Sipple's annual visit to El Toro Mexican restaurant. And Sip, you got a haircut? Look at that.
Hello. Man.
Yeah, it was accidental, actually. I mean, I never know what to say anymore.
Man, some shiny domes on this show now.
Yeah, I know. That's why I'm wearing a hat. Because with me and Sean, easy there.
You're like my little mini-me.
Oh, that's trouble. That's
fighting words right there.
Yeah, don't ever do that again.
My little buddy.
That's the first and last time you do that.
My little mini-me. Wow, Sean.
There won't be a second.
Yeah, there won't be a strike one. There won't be a
That
strike
was
two.
troubling. Rob's got full head of hair, right?
For now.
You got some gray, though.
Yeah.
He's got some distinguished gray, but
Yeah.
we're heading out to Indy.
We're heading out to
We're off the track. Let's get back on the tracks
enough
here.
hair talk.
Big Ten Media Days, 3-day event. And this, obviously, to me, it's a historical Big Ten Media Days for a lot of reasons. But starting with the 4 new members, USC, UCLA, Washington, and Oregon. But now we know the revenue sharing as well, and some of these things are going to hit college football. So the discussions, the topics, the photo ops of history that are going to happen. I mean, there's a lot of things about this media days that will make it probably one of the more interesting ones that, you know, I've been to 15 of these now. This will be my 15th one because I went back in 2010 when Nebraska still wasn't in the league yet, but that was the year they got accepted in, and that was historical. But this year itself, with all the newness in the new playoff too, I'm really interested.
Yeah, there's some history. I read in your column this morning, you remember 2010 Osborne. You remember things that are interesting. I don't remember stuff like you do.
You weren't there, were you?
Where the hell was I?
Well, the Nebraska wasn't there as a team. They're still in the Big 12.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Oh, you went to the Big Ten media days?
Yes.
And I
A
didn't?
small group of us went.
Oh, really? Why did you go?
Because Osborne was going to be there and be available. And then we talked to a lot of the other Big Ten teams about Nebraska joining the league.
I didn't go.
I don't think so.
Huh. It's kind of interesting.
What
I
were
don't
you
remember whether I was there or not. But you remember Osborne being photographed with Paterno and Delaney on the stage. You have an incredible memory. I need to watch stuff like that this week. I suppose there'll be photo ops like that. And yeah, I guess there is some history here.
Osborne made a joke. He's like, well, I guess they said we're both kind of old guys that have done a lot, and they wanted to get us together for a picture. You know, he just kind of made like a dry humor joke about it.
Yeah, that sounds like Osborne.
Yeah. I mean, this is the first time the Big Ten's been a coast-to-coast league. And I'm just curious what the cultural dynamics of, you know, your USC flashy dudes with the Rutgers guys in the same room. I mean, this is going to be pretty interesting with just the different dynamics of the geography of this conference now and the different personalities that are now joining it, and just kind of how all of that meshes together unofficially for the first time.
How far will it go with expansion? How far are we going? It's 18 right now. At what point isn't it a conference anymore?
Well, Notre Dame has a standing invite at any moment, in my opinion.
And then who else? How next year are we going to be talking about the same type of thing?
Could be.
It just depends on if they're going to take the AAU thing seriously or not. You know, if Clemson and Florida State, if something were to work out to get them at a discounted rate, not the full freight rate that USC and UCLA got, maybe there's a way to make that happen. But the Big 12, I mean, there's so much, that could change here. North Carolina and Virginia are surprisingly 2 teams that get a lot of run to join the Big Ten because of their AAU status.
And because they're in growth states, growth areas,
more importantly,
and because they're strong athletic departments. They are strong athletic departments, prestigious schools, particularly. Now listen, I'm going to start punching over my weight a little bit, but I would say Virginia more of a prestigious school than North Carolina.
Yeah, not by much though. North Carolina's up there.
Oh, it's extremely, if you're an in-state student to get into Virginia, it's like next to impossible.
Is that right?
Like each high school is only allowed so many in-states, like 2 or 3 per high school. It
screams Big
It's
Ten.
like borderline Ivy League.
That screams big. That's what Big Ten likes. Big Ten likes Virginia. Big Ten, Oklahoma State, no. Virginia, Kansas State, no. I mean, Virginia makes sense.
Especially when you compare it with money-making opportunities with their TV markets, and then, like you said, in some cases, good or championship level athletic departments.
And there's Nebraska, as far as like that's why the AAU status and things have you have to get that buttoned up. I mean,
yeah, that's true. Nebraska, on the other hand, has that glorious, rich football tradition. They have Osborne. They have Osborne, Devaney. But yeah, Nebraska should thank. You know what? They should really be thankful for Tom Osborne. I mean, and Bob Devaney, because they wouldn't be in there.
Well, and the
would they be in the Big Ten without him?
Ndamukong Suh 2009?
No, they wouldn't.
Think about Ndamukong Suh 2009. How high Nebraska stock was when they left AT&T Stadium.
Right. Yeah. Nebraska was rolling,
and then they played Arizona, shut them out. That was Aaron Andrews and Mike. I mean, like Kirk Herbstreit, a big time crew announcing that game.
And that was Bo saying we're back and here to stay.
And a couple months later, they were in the Big Ten Conference.
Yep.
Because it felt, and then guess who was picked to win the Big Ten in their first season in the league? Nebraska.
Wow. Better times.
Yep.
I mean, that little moment, though, of success in the Pliny era, you can't argue that it helped Nebraska get into this league.
Yeah, you can't argue that. Absolutely. No doubt. You're right.
So we'll get Nebraska Wednesday. They're going to share the stage, though, with USC, Penn State, UCLA, Iowa, and even Michigan State, who's got a brand new head coach. So in a lot of ways, I wrote that today, that Nebraska kind of under the radar. I mean, of the 6 teams they're sharing the stage with, 2 have new head coaches. One's a playoff team. One's coached by Lincoln Riley, who's coached in playoff games. And obviously you've got Iowa, who thinks they can be a 10-win type team this year. So
you go back to 2010. This is not what Nebraska fans imagined, in terms of Nebraska going in under the radar, going in as sort of an afterthought.
Being an also ran.
Yeah. This is not what we imagined at all. But this is where Nebraska is.
The thing is, though, that changes so quickly. If Nebraska ever starts to get things going with their football program, all of a sudden they become the commodity of their day, whenever day they go. And they're going to be probably picked to go opposite Ohio State and Michigan just because of the attention that they're going to draw.
Yeah.
I mean, the potential has always been there. They just need to finally do it.
Oh, that's exactly right. The brand, I always say it, the brand will snap back. I mean, the brand's not.
Quickly.
Yeah, the brand's still strong enough.
If they do anything of relevance on the field, things are going to get rolling fast.
How many teams that haven't gone to a bowl game since 2016 can still travel 20 to 30,000 fans to road games?
None.
Zero.
Yeah. I say that with confidence.
It grinds the ever-living gears out of other regional fan bases. Kansas State fans, Kansas fans, they're having great years, and they still can't beat Nebraska for recruits. And perfect example, Nebraska lands the #1 player in North Dakota this week, Cade Peadshock. And by the way, I got proper pronunciation from my friend Dom Izzo, and a longtime voice in the Fargo market who's covered Cade, and it's Peadshock. So Peadshock. Don't be tricked by Cade Peadshock's last name. That's the problem. But they were able to beat Oklahoma and Kansas State and Wisconsin. Now they have the #1 ranked players from both South and North Dakota, both, as Steve Sipple would like to say, the line of scrimmage guys.
Love it. Love it.
Bigs.
Yeah. And I mean, you watch this guy's tape. I filmed him up. Whoa. I mean, you can see why the Wisconsins of the world and the Oklahomas of the world, in Kansas State, by the way, which is a line of scrimmage school. Oh God, you can see why.
That guy's like a prototype Wisconsin guy.
He is. He's a wrecking crew. Now you got to obviously you have to say it. You look at the competition and it's not great. It's not. He overwhelms smaller guys, but man, his motor is incredible. I mean, I'm not going to compare. I'm not going to do the comparison thing, but you think about some Nebraska greats that had great motors. He's like that. He really catches your eye, the way he tracks down ball carriers and how athletic he is at that size. God, he's athletic.
And he's a mean SOB. Like, he doesn't want to do interview. I mean, I don't think he did a commit interview.
He's a beauty. He's a beauty. Nebraska has done a great, I mean, if you want to feel better about Nebraska football, just watch his film. I mean, if you want to feel better about the Nebraska recruiting class, think about those 3 defensive linemen that they got. Tyson Terry, the kid from Galveston,
Malcolm Simpson.
and then watch this video. I mean, and on the other side, they've done a good job on the offensive line. And think about it. They have the highest rated kids in the Dakotas. And then the back-to-back years, they have the highest rated kids in Hawaii. That's good. That's a good sign. I mean, it doesn't mean you're Alabama, but it's a good step.
And they've cleaned up in Colorado. I mean, they've been able to go in there. I mean, they're to the point now they can get about any guy they want out of Colorado.
Really?
Because Colorado's not recruiting the state.
Mm-hmm.
Odd.
Mountain West teams have moved into Colorado to try to steal guys, but Nebraska can, I think, go into Colorado and get about any guy they want right now.
How is the talent in Colorado, though?
Well, there's 6 million people there, and there's 2 million here. So I mean, generally, just
you're already in hot water with me, by the way.
About your haircut?
No, about your mini me comment.
Oh,
Still sticking with.
Okay, so the talent you're saying the talent's good.
I mean, Colorado, it's under evaluated and under recruited, and I think
that's what I was getting at.
One of the things about Colorado recruiting, January is a big month for recruiting now. It's kind of hard to get to Denver, Colorado sometimes in January.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep, it is.
And get around.
Yeah.
Make the rounds.
Yeah.
So I do think that actually hurts a state like Colorado. If there's any kind of weather like this past January, it was hard to get up there. So a lot of kids didn't get the traction. But the Dakotas, Colorado, those have to be key states. And now Kansas City with Mosey's hire to the staff here as well, Jamar Mosey.
Yeah, there's some traction.
Keith Williams leading St. Louis. Matt Rule understands the importance of winning those regions.
Bro, this is a big one. This is a legit big recruit. And Sean, surprised, Sean, you didn't see it coming.
No.
Yeah. What changed? Because Nebraska was a distant second for a while there, right?
I think they were only a distant second because Cade was so quiet. And Oklahoma, everyone just assumed Oklahoma. In fact, Josh McQuistion, who's a really good Oklahoma Sooner recruiting writer for our Soonerscoop.com, he put his RPM in to Oklahoma.
Beat Oklahoma.
Derek Young at Kansas State Online, thought K-State had a great chance. I think NIL at Nebraska also probably helped a little bit too. I'm sure they were very aggressive to get a guy like that here. So lots to keep up on.
This is a big win for Nebraska. It flies under the radar a little bit, time of year, Dakota, Fargo, but it doesn't fly under the radar.
What was their biggest need in the 25 class? Line.
Yeah, well, that's right. Rob, it's almost always a big need.
I know.
They're hard to find, those guys. And now you found a good one. Ooh.
All right. When we come back, the Big Ten preseason poll is out. It's broken down now 1 through 18 without divisions. We'll go through that next. You're listening here to the Husker Online Show. And we're back here on the Husker Online Show. Sean Callahan, Steve Sipple, Robin Washut, as we get ready to head out to Big Ten Media Days in Indianapolis. This segment of the Husker Online Show brought to you by Ellerbrock-Norris. They've been helping Nebraska business owners protect their purpose for over 120 years. With risk management solutions built for local businesses, Ellerbrock-Norris partners with you on commercial insurance, group benefits, business exit planning, safety, and more. Start thinking long-term with your business and create a risk management strategy to protect it. Are your employee benefit costs going through the roof? Talk to Ellerbrock. Workplace injuries skyrocketing your workers' compensation costs? Talk to Ellerbrock. Hoping to retire in the next 10 years and sell the business to family, key employees, or a friendly competitor? Talk to Ellerbrock. Ellerbrock-Norris is helping you protect your purpose, whether it's your business and the employees in it, your life outside of work, or your future retirement goals. Head to ellerbrock-norris.com/HuskerOnline today to get your free risk evaluation. Thank you again to Ellerbrock-Norris for sponsoring us here on the Husker Online Show. Okay, the Big Ten preseason media poll out. Nebraska comes in at 8. I was a voter in this poll. There were 27 votes that went in the poll. And I will tell you this, I nailed really, I believe the top 10. I think I had the top 10 or top 11 pretty much in order how it came out. Ohio State won. Not consensus, though. I was actually somewhat surprised that Oregon has 6 votes.
Whoa, we are totally opposite on that take. I thought I thought Oregon would get more votes than that. I was surprised Ohio State was that resoundingly the favorite. Thought it'd be closer.
I think it's about right.
Okay.
I mean, I think Ohio State's the better team at
I
this
do
point.
too.
I think Oregon's really good, in which they deserved some votes.
Right.
But I think that if I were to pick an overwhelming favorite, I'd go Ohio State.
Ohio State got 21 first
Mhm.
place.
Oregon lost twice last year to Washington, right?
Yes.
And they were favored in both
True.
games.
Yep. Those are, yeah. I'm glad you mentioned that. I mean, that's the sort of the red splotch on Dan Lanning's record.
Mhm.
Lost twice to Washington.
Supposedly they had better players, in terms of
Oregon.
Yeah. And got out schemed, out drawn. I mean, those were very good games, obviously, but Ohio State, Oregon, Penn State 3.
Makes sense ahead of Michigan. I what I've been saying is Penn State looks a horse length better than Michigan to me. Not way better, but enough better. Michigan loses. I think Michigan loses its entire offensive line. Now, Penn State does lose 3 starting offensive linemen, but has its quarterback back.
And it's running back.
Mhm.
Penn
Running
State
backs.
has 2 good
I was
running
gonna
backs.
say plural.
Penn State has 2 good running backs back, and Michigan's got to try to make it work with Donovan Edwards, who I like. He's a big play threat, but he's not doesn't strike me as a grinding down to down.
He's not Blake Corum.
No, hammer you like Corum did. So I don't know what that's going to look like.
And then Iowa, 5th. And,
Respect.
it's just funny. I think when you look at the perception of Iowa, you think they're on the downward slide, but they had a very good year last year in terms of wins. And they had to manage a season without a quarterback. And they did. They figured out ways to win games. They hammered Wisconsin in a typical. They have 4 first-team All Big Ten level defenders.
Mhm.
They are loaded.
Their defense is really, really good.
Loaded.
And they have
Really good.
Cade McNamara back. They have the best tight end, maybe Luke Lachey in the Big Ten.
Mhm.
I don't know about that. Colson Loveland and
If
Warren at
if
Penn
he was
State.
healthy,
They're
yeah,
all good, Sean. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm not.
He's an
taking
NFL
he
tight
could
end.
be in that conversation
Yeah.
for sure if he bounces back off that injury.
This is a good tight end league. It's really good. But you're right. Iowa is. This is where you give Phil Parker a lot of credit. What's always good at Iowa? Phil Parker's defense.
Mhm.
I
And
mean,
special teams.
He's the Charlie McBride of Iowa. I mean, they have a really good defensive.
And their schedule is set up for them to possibly win 10 games.
Yes.
There you go.
They have Ohio State. That is the only game when you look at it, like, okay, they'll lose that game probably.
Mhm.
Other than that, their other 11
There it
games
is.
are winnable opportunities. And when I had Iowa at 5th in my poll, but tell me where the second loss is on that schedule.
Ooh, that is a good schedule.
I mean,
Maryland will be tough. Maryland will be tough. You saw their roster when it came into Lincoln. That's a good looking team.
but that's a great schedule.
It is.
Washington,
really,
new coach.
It's like Nebraska.
Michigan State, new coach. Northwestern's in Iowa City. Wisconsin's in Iowa City. UCLA, new head coach.
Wow.
I mean, that's a great schedule.
They got a good
It is.
schedule. 10.
It
Yeah,
is.
they look like a 10. That looks like a 10-win schedule.
Like they'll probably lose another one on there, but if they
Yeah.
go 10-2, they're a possible playoff team.
Yeah. I want to see what McNamara is. McNamara is he going to be the quarterback for sure?
Yeah.
Is he?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I mean, as long as he stays on track, he's firmly in the front.
I mean, he's their
front runner right
NIL
now.
guy
Yeah.
that they've put their chip on.
It's just a matter if he stays healthy, he'll be good. He'll be the guy.
All right. Iowa 5th.
USC 6, and
High.
I think nobody really knows what USC is going to be.
That looks high. They're really. I think they're still too deficient up front on defense to be that high.
In Wisconsin 7, and Robin and I debated this with in Nebraska 8th. Robin thought Nebraska should be over Wisconsin. My argument is Nebraska has only beat Wisconsin one time in 13 years.
Yeah, but that has nothing to do with 2024. What I'm saying is Nebraska is, I mean, 7-8. It's hard to argue it too much. My general gripe is and I was picking them 7th doesn't maybe suggest it, but I think there's a lot of people giving too much credit to Wisconsin just because they're Wisconsin. If you look at what they lost a lot. I mean, they lost their quarterback. They lost their all Big Ten running back. They lost a bunch of guys on the offensive line, and they got a really hard schedule. If you pull up their schedule, I mean, we talked to for our spring opponent reviews. I talked to a guy named Zach Halpern, who's a radio guy up in Madison, and he said that he thinks Wisconsin's going to be better than they were a year ago, but because of that schedule, they're probably going to be 7-5 again.
Wow,
that was his projection.
Fickle, 2 straight 7 and 5s.
Mhm. That would be 3 in a row for them. Like 7-6, 7-5. So that's what I'm saying. Like they're one of those teams where like Iowa is probably Iowa, but because of that schedule, you vault them up a few
Here's
pegs.
the thing. This is what I think we have to get used to as media and fans. We're going to say, wow, Wisconsin 7-5 again. That's like 9-3 of the past. With these schedules now, we can't look at 7-5 like we used to, right?
Mhm.
Look at Wisconsin.
Well, 9-3 is now playoff.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. You see what I'm saying? 7-5, like an NFL team, you're like, okay, they're fine.
Mhm. Especially when you look at where those 7 wins are coming.
The key, you have to win those non-conference games.
No
like
doubt.
you have to get a 3-0 cushion
Yep.
to build up on.
Yeah. I wouldn't load up in the non-con either.
Well, I think then you look at the surprise. I mean, you look at the bottom 9 through 18.
Okay.
How about Rutgers? I mean, that is
Mm.
just an ultimate nod of respect.
They're a popular dark horse.
Rutgers is picked higher than the team that finished runner-up for the national championship.
You're right.
Maryland, who had one of its best years in recent history. Northwestern, who had a great year. UCLA, who has great talent still, even though they're new. You go down the line, but Rutgers, 9th. And that's the toughest of Nebraska's first 7 games. Take out Colorado. That's the highest ranked team they play in that preseason poll because Illinois, Purdue, Indiana are further down the line. So their first 7, that Rutgers game will be the highest ranked opponent Nebraska plays until they see Ohio State.
That's why I keep saying it's a 50-50 game, and this sort of backs.
It's in Lincoln, though. That's key.
I know. It
That's
looks
big.
like a 50-50 game,
That's
though.
big. Rutgers is always tough. The issue is they just have their quarterback play has kept a really low ceiling for them. Like they're always
more
going to be kind
Gavin
of middle.
wins that.
And now they have Ethan Kaliakmanis,
Yep.
former Minnesota starting
They
quarterback.
got their TJ Maxx
And
quarterback.
They'll go as
Still
far as
little-
he takes them. I know it's
still-
not like it's a huge
Yeah,
upgrade,
they
but
didn't- yeah.
can he be serviceable enough to help them take that step
Yeah.
from 6-6, 7-5 to 8 wins?
8, yeah. You look at the bottom of the conferences. When I look at conferences' strength, I look at the bottom. How tough is it at the bottom? This is a tough bottom. I mean, you look at the final 18, the lowest ranked teams in this conference. 3 of them beat Nebraska last year.
Mhm.
I mean, these are tough teams. Maryland's a tough team.
Indiana's going to score a ton of points.
Yeah.
They might not have a defense, but they're going to score a ton of
People
points.
kept telling me, "Oh, Sipple, Nebraska will go into Spartan Stadium and roll Michigan State." You saw that game. Michigan
Yeah.
State outslugged
with an interim
Nebraska.
coach.
Hey, they outslugged Nebraska. That's what I was sitting by Sean. I kept saying, "Sean, they're losing in the trenches."
No, Coach Rule told me that they were as physical of a team as they played all year.
Yeah, they were
that
losing.
game.
They beat up Nebraska in the trenches. I mean, it was. And look at where Michigan State is. 16.
I know.
It's a tough league, baby. It's a tough league.
Yeah, it's going to get tougher. That's the thing. It's not getting easier as this money pushes its way through the rosters, the $22 million per team, and we'll talk about that more in our next segment. There's no excuse not to have good players. None.
No, there's not.
None.
You're right. There's really not. Even at the places that traditionally don't.
Because you have an advantage over the ACC and the Big 12 now.
Wow, Sean, that's interesting.
All right, when we come back, we'll talk about roster cap sizes and the proposed revenue sharing figure being thrown out there next. You're listening to the Husker Online Show. And we're back here on the Husker Online Show. Sean Callahan, Steve Sipple, Robin Washett, and this segment of the Husker Online Show brought to you by Omaha Steaks. And, summer guys is in full swing. I had the grill out yesterday. I was making smash burgers on my griddle yesterday for
really?
kid's birthday party. Had some great Omaha Steaks burgers.
How many?
I made 13 hamburgers.
Jeez.
I had a huge family gathering at my house.
Good job.
And
Good job,
nothing,
chef.
Omaha Steaks, they have you covered. Not just hamburgers, though. They have steaks, obviously chicken, sides, pork, desserts, you name it. And many of these great packages and deals start at just $99. But on top of that, we are going to give you an extra $10 off at checkout with promo code HuskerOnline at checkout. So a reminder, it's HuskerOnline for this specific promo, and we're going to give you $10 off the already discounted prices here at Omaha Steaks. Look at that apple tartlet, by the way. Those are outstanding. I've had some of those. Haven't tried the lobster tail, but they have everything you can imagine at Omaha Steaks here, as you can see, and tons of great packages on there.
Look good.
And it's ran and operated by a Husker. Nate Rempe, good friend of mine, went to college with me from Lincoln Pius, lives in Lincoln, and listens to our show regularly. The CEO, president of Omaha Steaks, and we've been proud to be partners with Omaha Steaks here on the Husker Online show.
Okay, looks good.
All right, let's get into this discussion, guys. Revenue sharing is here, and it's not going anywhere now. And we know this: 22 million is the number teams will have to distribute to the athletes. And we do believe there will be a Title IX element to this. The question still remains, what is the portion of that 22 million that will be allotted to football, then basketball, then other volleyball, and everybody else? And the SEC put out this marker this week that they anticipate 15 million of the 22 million of that money will be distributed to potentially just 105 players, which if you do the math, that's about 147,000 on average per player if you distribute just that money.
Big Ten coaches say thank you, SEC, or they should. If that's what the SEC is doing, the Big Ten's not going to come out and say, you know what, we're just going to do 9.
My question though is, if you're like,
come on,
Northwestern or Indiana, or a team that doesn't recruit high-end players, are you just going to pay everybody $147,000? I
don't know. See, now this is what I'm sure you wanted. You evolve into this strange discussion. Is Northwestern going to pay football players $15 million? What if they don't want to? Does every school have to do that? Can't every school have its own limit? Is that out of the question? Where each school can say, this is what we're doing.
When are we going to go to an employee model? Because I've talked to some people very tied in to collectives. Yeah. And I mean, there still is this feel that we could go to an employee model.
Where the players have to pay taxes?
Well, yeah, they have to pay taxes anyway.
Okay, so where they have workers' comp, workman's comp.
I mean, yeah, I think
how would that work?
How do you pay all this money out as independent contractors? Because that's like, right now, the one advantage you get through the collective is every player is essentially paid as an independent contractor, and just for diligence reasons, 1890 withholds. So they pay, like I'm a small business owner, and I have to pay quarterly taxes, payments on all the different things through my LLC. They do that for every kid.
Wow.
And they withhold and they do all those things. So it's really a complicated model, how they decide to go about this, because this is not a small chunk of change here, guys.
No, it's not. And I honestly think inevitably that'll go to a pay for play model, or like an employee model, to where the players are employees and they figure out all the logistics from there. I'm sure it won't be easy, but I think there's nowhere else to go for this, because right now you're trying to do all these little loopholes and whatnot to make it work. I think the most sustainable way to go about in this new era is to just make the players employees.
Could you keep it off the books though and pay it to 1890, and then they handle all of that? Because I do wonder if you go to this employee model at Nebraska, how much of this will be public? Like, will you have to disclose
who's making what?
All that out?
Probably have to be, right?
I don't know.
I
mean, it's
if they're employees of a state institution, aren't they required to?
This is a question Sean should ask Troy Dannon on Wednesday when Dannon's on the scene. This is your territory, Sean.
Yeah, I don't think anybody knows though.
No.
That's right. And then the roster size, the SEC put their number out. They want 105. The Big Ten wants 110. My question is, can conferences set their own mark, or do they have to be uniform across the board?
That's a good question. That it just brings to mind the issue that we've always talked about with college sports. There's not much uniformity, and that's frustrating in some ways. Like this,
because people are playing different games,
right?
I mean.
Right.
The SEC is doing it differently than everybody else. And if the Big Ten wants to keep up, then
and notice SEC setting the tone in this discussion.
In everything.
Yeah.
Well, they have their media days first.
Yeah.
And they have it during the Major League All-Star break. So they have the best July stage of anybody. ACC and Big Ten split the week here this week.
So the Big Ten in effect is in this position of reacting to what the SEC does,
Mhm.
which is not, it's not the end of the world. I don't want to
No.
portray it that way, but it's not. That would get old if I were Tony Petitti. Like always. So this is what the SEC's doing. What are you going to do?
Yeah, when they set the bar on the national level of like, this is how we're doing it, what's everybody else going to do?
Right.
And if you don't match that, it's a negative recruiting tool that
Kind
SEC
of,
teams
yeah.
can use against everyone in your conference.
So yeah, the SEC comes out and sets the tone.
Mhm.
Well, and this is a big deal here with the roster size, bigger than anywhere else, in my opinion, in the country.
Yeah, because
those additional 40 players are a big piece of the fabric of Nebraska's history.
100.
And you're just throwing it out the window.
It's
at that
over.
point.
Like you wrote it today. It's basically done.
And it's going to happen. But will there at least be a grandfather to protect the current players? I think there has to be. I don't think you can just disrupt 30 or 40 young men's educations and
Just tell them it's over.
in your future, in their future.
Just bring them into your office, Matt Rule, and say it's over. Rule doesn't want to do that.
No, I don't think you can do that. I mean, kind of like the COVID year, they gave everybody the extra, and then Nebraska can do what they want to do at that point. But then once we get to this 1-5, 1-10, could you have a taxi squad, a practice squad
Mhm.
that's not on the quote active roster
Mhm.
that still gets to do things?
And
Yeah,
with
Rule.
the potential of moving on to the roster.
Yeah, Rule said that like earlier this summer when he talked, he threw that exact idea out. And a lot of it is because of experience in the NFL where, I mean, sure, they have a 53-man roster on an active NFL roster, but they use twice that much over the course of an NFL season. If you're asking these college teams to play upwards of 16, 17 games
Yep.
in a season,
Yep.
you're not getting by with just 110 guys.
No, you're
Like
not
just
usually.
the attrition of injuries over a course of a
The
season. that
Georgias and
long.
the Alabamas can.
Yeah, I know. And so
Not everybody else, though.
yeah, that's the thing. They're playing a different game. And so like for everybody else to be able to keep up, I think you need to have these other types of options where you can have a quote unquote practice squad or whatever you want to call it to just give yourself more depth that you would otherwise have under the current roster model.
Like a Luke Reimer maybe wouldn't have gotten an opportunity at Nebraska in this new model. I mean, we talk about taking walk-ons.
Think about that. I mean, where does he rank on Nebraska?
Top 5 tackler.
Mm-hmm.
Top 3. Yeah.
Top 3.
I mean, you just think about all the walk-on stories that you're just taking away.
Right. And that's what's happening.
Andy Janovich.
As far as that practice squad goes, I think the most important thing is can you leave the potential for them to move up on the roster? It's not just a taxi squad where, hey, you're only practicing, you'll never play for Nebraska.
Yeah. You'd have to have like an IR where if like a guy gets hurt and he's still on the roster, still can be paid whatever scholarship NIL, but you can have the ability to move a guy up without going over your restricted number.
But during fall camp, like, do those players, do they not going to live in Selleck Hall and be a part of, I mean, are they just the guys that would report on the first day classes like it used to be?
Yeah.
And then they're just strictly scout team. But you just wonder how many guys would want that versus like going to play at a Kearney or
South Dakota State. Those
Mhm.
places have become very alluring.
Yep.
And they're much more alluring than they were when I started my career. I mean, now you go to South Dakota State and you're playing in the playoffs,
Mhm.
and it's you're playing in a nice stadium. In North Dakota State, it goes without saying. I mean, it'd be a great place to play.
The trickle down effect, though, of these like 30 or 40 players off a lot of rosters nationwide, it will fall down to each level.
Yes, it will.
Mhm.
So the FCS and the group of 5s will gain better players, and
Yep.
then the Division 2s will gain better players.
Good.
I mean,
That's a positive effect.
It
That's
is.
the one like you won't be able to stash
Right.
all these players. I mean, when
That's
you
a
have,
positive. That is a positive.
Yeah.
so like if you're Ryan Held at UNK
Mhm.
or some of the other programs out there at the FCS level, there's a lot of potential to get some good players that you weren't able to get. And even junior colleges might get a nice bump back because
Yep.
COVID killed junior college football in terms of the way they used to get their players because
that?
they eliminated the ACT. So to go to college, you don't need to take the ACT anymore to get into school. And that used to be kind of a knockout, right, for a lot of guys. If you scored really low on the ACT, there was no way to
You're going
repair.
to JUCO.
You're going to JUCO. Well, now it's just strictly core GPA, and you could get in with, I believe, a 2.1.
They're handing out 2.1s in high school.
And and if you get the right,
they are.
if you get the right like people on you to help you, counselors and teachers and coaches, they're going to get you the 2.1.
right.
So
100.
the pool of players
Yeah.
that JUCOs get is far.
Really interesting, Sean.
Yeah,
Sean, that's
COVID
fascinating.
changed a lot of these things. But all right, when we come back, mailbag. Abby Barmore is not here. She's in the mountains somewhere without cell service for 9 days.
That sounds like paradise to me, actually.
I'm jealous.
Yeah.
So when we come back, I will do the mailbag and lead us through that.
You are Abby.
You're listening to the Husker Online Show. Sean Callahan here. Welcome back to the Husker Online Show with Steve Sipple, Robin Washit, as we get ready to head out to Indianapolis. This segment of the Husker Online Show brought to you by Manscaped. It's summertime. It's hot out. Manscaped, though, has tons of great products for your beard. If you want to trim your beard, take care of your beard shampoo, beard conditioner, beard balm, they have got you covered on manscaped.com. Also, tons of great body washes, shampoo and conditioner products, deodorants. That's all at Manscaped, and we're proud to be able to offer you a great special here as a listener to the Husker Online Show. You're going to get 20% off and receive free shipping with the code HUSKER at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com. You got to use the promo code HUSKER. Manscaped, the perfect way to take care of your body here over this hot summer. It's going to be over 100 degrees next week, I just read, by the way.
Is that right? Back to a hundo.
I know. Enjoy it while you can.
Yeah, we had a nice little cool snap there.
It's beautiful. 70s in late July. Yeah. Hello.
All right, well, let's get to the mailbag.
Let's talk some more weather.
Yeah, people want to just have super saver talk here.
Yeah, how much rain did you get at your place?
Sir, it's hot. What have you been up to? Hardly nothing. All right. Well,
all right.
Got any fun trips planned for the summer?
I don't see people conversing in the checkout line. I don't see that as often as I used to. I don't know if that's a COVID thing.
That's more like when you run into people that you haven't seen and they know you talk.
Yeah.
All right, let's get to the mailbag.
Yeah,
God dang it. What the hell are we doing?
Off to a great start.
Question 1, can Nebraska be top 5 passing in the Big Ten? In reference, 220 yards last year was 5th in the Big Ten in passing. I would expect with the new teams in, you're probably looking at more like 230 to 245-ish. Mm-hmm. Can they be that type of thing? I think they can be.
I do. They're
going to need to be.
Mm-hmm. I don't, when you look at the top teams in the league, well, who has been the top teams in the league? Michigan's not going to put up a big passing number, I don't think, this year. Ohio State's with Chip Kelly is going to run the hell out of it. Okay, no, they're going to run the hell out of it. They still might be a good passing team, but they are going to run.
They also have the best receiving core in the country.
That's true.
Ohio State might run for 250 a game.
Yeah. See, then
throw for 250
or throw for 200. Okay, that's 450.
Yeah, you're right.
Penn State with Drew Aller is a good. I mean, he completes 65%, I think, but he doesn't throw it downfield. Mm-mm. So what I'm getting at is, I think Nebraska could be, but man, Nebraska's going from they averaged 125 a game last year.
Yeah,
125 yards passing a game, if I'm not mistaken. That's off the top of my head. I looked it up the other day. I think it's 125.3.
That's terrible.
Chick and Nick will have fun with that one. I think it's 125.3, and you're
guessing here.
So you're going to be So you're going to be taking a big jump if you're going to be in the top 5. Huge jump.
Yeah, and like Indiana's going to throw the ball all over the place, so they're going to be right up there at the top. I think Oregon's going to throw the ball a bunch.
Indiana will be up there. Huh?
Yes, I mean they're like with that offense they're running, they're going to throw it like 55 times a game.
Interesting.
They're going to throw it all over the place. Now
Robin's all in on Indiana.
No, I'm all in their offense. I think they're going to just because of the volume in which they're going to get snaps and play offense. They're going to
Purdue will be that way too,
but they're not going to stop anybody.
Hudson Card.
Indiana's D line is not good.
So Nebraska, not only is it the quarterback discussion, they're much better at receiver. I wonder ultimately how good they'll be, but it looks better right now.
The short controlled passing game too will be there, and it hasn't been there for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Where you can get little 6-yard, almost like
dig routes,
like run plays almost.
So much of their passing game was just chunks. I mean, if they weren't getting those 50-yard passes to Jalen Lloyd, I mean, imagine what their average would have been without that.
Well, they've talked about it in the spring. How about those just quick hitters to the
and yards
sideline.
After the catch?
Quick hitter to the sideline with those big receivers blocking. or a Fedoni out there blocking, right? Hey, listen, if you can get 5 yards on that, that's huge.
All right.
They should.
This quick one here. Turning to season predictions, is 8 wins the right number to predict?
7 or 8.
I mean, 7 or 8. I think it depends on just kind of how optimistic you are. But if they can beat Colorado, I think they got a great chance at 8 wins.
Yeah, I'm sticking with 7 and 5 just to stay conservative and just kind of believe it
Not to
before I
get
can
yelled
see
at.
it. Yeah, but 8's certainly in the cards, especially if
You misled us.
Hey, if they beat Colorado and do so somewhat convincingly, I think that they got a chance to get some momentum and then be all the way to the bowl game by the time the midway point of the season hits.
Nebraska fans have there's a different vibe that Sean's alluding to. There's not this outpouring of optimism. It's more reserved now. And I think people they are fine with you saying 7 and 5. And they probably prefer that.
Just surprised me, basically. It's kind of the mentality. Yeah. Because look, everyone, 2019, that was supposed to be like the turnaround for Frost, and they went 5 and 7.
Yeah, that was Bill Moose in the hallway of the Chicago Hilton. I asked him, what's your expectation for this season? What would be a good expectation, a reasonable expectation? What do you want to see? He said 6 wins in a bowl game. It was interesting that he attached a number to it. That, which brings the question: would Dannon do that tomorrow, Wednesday?
Seems like a good question.
Don't give up your playbook.
You
just gave up your whole play script there.
Yeah, I do that.
He's gonna be ready for you now.
Yeah, have her answer ready, Troy.
All right. With Harbaugh now gone in the Big Ten, what coaches are you excited to hear from at media days?
It's a big void. Let's face it. That's a big void. No Harbaugh.
Right.
Because he's by far the most interesting character.
Yeah, because you never knew what he was going to say.
No. And he was when he walked in the room, it was just automatically more interesting. Now, who's that? There's nobody. That's the answer.
Well, I think Rule could be like that, but I don't think he wants to be. I think Rule does not want to just go in there talking.
Gimmicky.
Yeah.
But he does use opportunities like that to make points. Like if he's got something that he wants to put out there, like he's going to find a way to do it.
Right.
And what a perfect opportunity if he's got something to say about roster sizes or something like that. Like maybe he could have some sound bites that come out of that podium session.
Maybe. But man, comparing him to Harbaugh in terms of just entertainment value, no. That ain't happening.
This is an interesting question. Will Nebraska and Notre Dame ever have another home-and-home series? I'm going to say no.
Yeah, I doubt it.
Unless they join the Big Ten down the road. But it just,
why do you say that?
Well, because it's not on the schedule now. And it just – you got to remember, Nebraska played Notre Dame in 2000 and 2001. And I believe their one before that was like in the 40s.
I think so.
So Notre Dame just doesn't hand out home-and-homes. No. And with their scheduling agreement already with the ACC right now, at least, it's hard to get a series with Notre Dame.
Well, you said it yourself, Sip. Going forward with this conference expansion, like going out of your way to bulk up your non-con, you're doing yourself a disservice.
Well, forget what I say. That's what Rule has said.
Yeah. So, that's the biggest reason I think it won't happen.
Right.
just because you're taking on too much.
It's every 50 or 60,
not there yet.
Every 50 or 60 years is when they've played Nebraska. And it used to be Nebraska beat the Four Horsemen twice.
This is an interesting discussion because not everybody's the same. Not all schools approach it the same way. Rule right now has explicitly said he doesn't want to have a powerful Power 4 team on his non-conference schedule. Now that could change if Nebraska really gets rolling. But look at like USC playing LSU out of the gate. Now what I've heard is Lincoln Riley didn't want.
He tried to get out of the game.
Is that right? Like Frosty?
Yep.
He tried to pull a Frosty.
Yep.
I still would love to know who leaked that to Brett McMurphy. to get that storm going downhill.
But even then, like those big non-conference things, a lot of them are just at neutral sites now, to where you're not playing a true road game or a true home. Like the home and home of those, I think, are so few and far between.
Right.
Now.
You go to Jerry's World.
Yeah, you go to Jerry World, or you go to the LA Stadium or something like that. Like I think that's probably the way this is moving now. When you get those high-profile non-conference matchups, it's all going to be neutral site, just like college basketball.
Nebraska's going to play Cincinnati and Indianapolis, which doesn't make any sense to me.
Not really.
You think that one sticks?
It's on the schedule for next year.
You going back to USC and LSU and why Lincoln Riley might not want to play that. It's because of what we've seen happen to Nebraska in like 2007 when USC pulverized Nebraska and ruined its season. That's USC's got to be very careful in that game because LSU will pound you up front and USC suspect up front on defense. It's not only the physical toll, it's the mental toll and the emotional toll. I'm sure that's what Lincoln Riley was worried about.
Okay, final question. And if you know our travels to Indianapolis, one of our traditions has been hitting a famed Mexican restaurant, El Toro. And by the way, a large group of seminarians reached out to me, and they hit up El Toro during a gigantic priest convention.
Look at him.
And look at these guys just crushing El Toro on the recommendation of Husker Online.
God bless them.
And we appreciate.
Look at the men of the cloth.
Mm-hmm.
That's beautiful.
Hopefully somebody picked their check up for them.
Oh, I wonder how they did that. But that's a nice deal for El Toro. It's a good hit.
So El Toro, we've got
beautiful.
We got a margarita question for you, Steve Sipple.
Yeah, that's fine.
Steve Sipple likes his margaritas the traditional lime flavor, or does he try other flavors? I had a smoked jalapeno, and it was phenomenal.
Yeah, I like the mezcal. I like mezcal.
Pineapple?
Yeah, pineapple mezcal at El Toro is really good. I do tend to stick to traditional lime. It's pretty simple. Lime on the rocks, salt. That's what I
don't kill me on the I'm a lot of things. I'm not a tequila person.
You're not.
I just don't like tequila.
Is that right?
I just don't like
tequila just sits with me really well.
I think I've had bad cheap tequilas.
Yeah,
and then
that'll hurt you.
It throws you off.
Oh yeah, there's this distinct difference between the Cuervos and the Patrons, like that makes a huge difference.
Let me recommend Don Julio.
Don Julio.
So then, finally, who on the Husker Online staff is responsible for making sure Stephen M. Sipple brings his luggage on this trip?
I already started to pack. I should be fine.
Just put it in your truck today.
No. I'm not going to do that.
Just make sure you have it.
That's amazing. Amazing that you'd walk out the door without it. But I won't do that again.
We're not making any Target runs when we get there. We don't have enough time.
No, we don't have time. And I don't want to buy like a pants.
I'd hate to see like your closet and how you organize your house.
It's pretty rough.
Look,
it always has been.
It's organized chaos, right? Like, you know where stuff is.
Pretty much, yeah.
All right. We will be in Indy. When we come back, we're going to have some final thoughts on some Nebraska basketball news. You're listening here to the Husker Online Show. Final segment of the Husker Online Show. Sean Callahan, Steve Sipple, Robin Washett, as we get ready to head out to Indianapolis. Steve Sipple, the segment of the Husker Online Show, brought to you by who?
Larson Motors. Why don't we try to sell some cars? Why don't you try to go buy a car? If you're looking for a new vehicle, go for a new experience at Larson Motors in Nebraska City. Larson Motors, one of the Midwest's only dealerships with all the major brands in one location. Finding your new Chevrolet, GMC, there they are right there, Hummer, Ford, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, or Ram. Never has been easier. Start this new experience today at LarsonMotorGroup.com. or at Larson Motors in Nebraska City. Just, 45 minutes from Lincoln. Larson Motors, real people, real deals. Good job, guys. Real good job.
All right. Well, basketball talk. We were talking off air. Olympics starts up here. There'll be some interest in Keisei Tominaga playing for Japan. Obviously, Team USA. Tyronn Lue's an assistant coach.
How about that?
There's some Nebraska flavor on that USA bench, but
Jack McVay on the Australian team.
He's playing really well.
He's playing the NBA.
Yeah. He's
got a two-way deal.
That's an example of development.
Yeah.
That's an example of a guy who continued to get better.
He was leading the bench mob by the time his Nebraska career came to an end. Now he's got a two-way NBA contract.
He got an Australian pro title, that whatever their leagues call. I think it's called the NBL, actually. And they just won the title, and he was the MVP of the final series.
Yep.
McVay just kept getting better.
Yep. Would not have predicted that.
Nope.
Good for him, though. Great story. So, yeah, international play. Like you said, the Olympics start up for fans that want to watch Keisei. Their first game is against Germany on Saturday.
Good team.
It's going to be 6:30 tip local time. I'm sure it'll be streamed somewhere. Obviously, Berke Buyunktushul, who just wrapped up the FIBA under-20 championships out in Poland. They got eliminated on Sunday, I believe, with a 1-point loss to Iceland, which kind of was a surprise. Like, they were one of the favorites, or at least on paper, in that field, and they got sent to the bunny bracket and were quickly bounced from there. So disappointing run for them. But Berke had a pretty nice tournament. He had 15 points, 14 rebounds, 3 steals, 2 blocks in the loss to Iceland, which bumped his averages for the event, including the friendlies, to 12 points per game, 7.7 rebounds, 1.4 assists, and he shot 54% from the field, including going 54% from 3.
Jeez.
13 of 24 from behind the arc. So all those things that you projected of things to like about his game and how it would translate into Fred's offense, you saw it on display there. And he did so, he kind of tweaked his shoulder too. So he wasn't exactly 100%. He was still putting up those kinds of numbers. Now, the critique, I've only watched like highlights. I didn't sit down and is defensively, he's got some work to do. And he's not a very aggressive rebounder, even though it's hard to say he got 14 rebounds against Iceland. Like, he's not like dominating the boards the way that a guy like that should with his size. I think a lot of the rebounds just kind of come to him.
How tall?
6'8", 6'9".
He shoots.
Fred said that he was right on par with Rink Mast when he was here on his visit, and Rink's listed at 6'10". So I'd probably say he's closer to 6'9". Okay. Anyway, like, but he's kind of got to get that aggressive mindset, especially in the Big Ten. Like, rebounding in FIBA competition is a whole different animal than rebounding in the Big Ten, where that's a priority. And so defense, he's got a little bit more aggressive, got a little more tenacity. He's got to be more aggressive on the boards, but offensively, man, there's a lot to like with that picture.
And Robin, are the players now on a little bit of a break before classes start here in late August?
So they're going to continue their second phase of the summer session through July. And then once August hits, they basically get all of August off. And then they'll come back for the start of the fall semester, move back in, get their school stuff underway. And then in mid-September, I believe, is when the official fall practices start. So going back to Berke, even though that they're done at the FIBA tournament, he's still not going to arrive until probably right before the start of the fall semester. So when the team kind of reconvenes for the school year is probably when you're going to see Berke back. So he's not going to get any advance jump on doing anything here in Lincoln. He's going to continue to probably spend time with his family for a little bit longer and then come back and then join everybody else when they get back into their groove in August, early September.
And then lastly, Robin, Andy Katz came out with kind of his tiered preseason rankings of the Big Ten. Were you surprised he had Nebraska kind of in that bottom group?
Mainly because it's Andy Katz.
I know.
And when you look at a national media member that has been the conductor of the Nebraska hype train, it's Andy. Yeah. And so I think a lot of that, there's 2 parts. One, and I think that this is probably more where his line of thinking is the Big Ten's going to be a lot better. I mean, top to bottom, this league is going to be brutal.
Is it?
Yes. Very good. And it's like, you look at the Bart Torvik rankings too, which is now going to be included in the NCAA tournament selection process. I think Nebraska's probably in that same range where they're like 13th or 14th in the Big Ten, just because there's so many other teams that are projected to be like nationally competitive in the conference. And so it's not necessarily an indictment on Nebraska being bad. I think it's probably more a reflection of how highly people like Andy Katz think of the Big Ten as a whole. And then the other part of it is just the unknowns with the roster. You don't have Rink Mast. You don't have Keisei Tominaga. And you bring back Bryce and Juwan, but there's just questions about how all these new pieces are going to fit together, just like it was a year ago.
Lots to keep up on. And reminder, we'll be in Indianapolis Tuesday through Thursday, full wall-to-wall coverage of Nebraska, and athletic director Troy Dannon will also be there Wednesday. So get on HuskerOnline.com. If you're not a member, we got a great special to get you hooked up for Big Ten Media Days. We're going to give you 2 months for $1. Simply use the promo code NU1. That's promo code NU1 for 2 months for $1. For Steve Sipple, Robin Washut, we'll be back on Friday with Husker Online headlines as we wrap up Big Ten Media Days.